Hey, welcome to the DB channel, and today we have actually the AGORA Battle Cup Finals, which actually happened on the 21st July, which was just last Sunday actually. So today in the finals, we do actually have the one for all versus the very infamous Shy Lady Black deck. Basically, it does have the UG Sukuna clones, and of course, it's actually pretty good, obviously, given that it reached the finals. And however, we do have actually another deck to focus on, which is basically the whole one for all. Now, essentially, alright, the whole deck does function on playing few spells, which is basically the users. But however, upon a lot of gameplays, alright, it actually is discovered that the whole deck is actually super consistent. Alright, of course, it dependent on your own luck as well. But however, the consistency of the deck is actually pretty explosive, as we do see here with the All Might coming down, and it does become 2 energy if you have 3 or other users, and on the field alone there's already 3 other users, making it 5 energy in the back row already, which is pretty consistent. However, for the right player here, he actually just go for the double spirits in the front line with 2 double damage, and it's pretty scary, and we shall see how the left player actually reacts to this. But he does go for the All Might skill first, drawing 1, discarding 1, then going for the inherited power. Now, the inherited power does allow you to get top 4, and you can pick a user as well as Deku himself. He does actually go for the user here because you actually do want to see all 5 different users out into the field, and of course the outside area. This allows your 8 cost Deku to become 3 cost, and 3 cost for 5k is actually pretty ridiculous at times, especially if you do hit the nuts. And we do see the Banjo here, basically the Black Whip user, allowing him to actually gain snipe, actually giving it to the Deku rested. But however, because you do have the other user at the back row, which allows you to actually just stand active one of your Dekus, essentially the flight power, pretty sick, I would say, because you see he actually does go for the end, which is the other user, which allows him to just basically protect from character effects and draw 1. And because of Izuku effect, if you do see or witness another user just get retired, he does go for the draw 1 again. And we do see a final here, which allows him to play the second Deku, which is essentially 4 costs this turn because he does see 4 users. Does play back the Black Whip here, preparing for the next turn. And if you guys actually see the nuts going here, it's actually pretty scary given that the deck can do so much. And do not forget, this is actually the first 3 AP turn to the left player here, with 4 front row as well as an Ochako to actually protect those Deku from any potential special from the opponent. Basically, they actually have to answer the Ochako first. And it's pretty scary because you actually have to waste a removal on the Ochako before you can actually use the actual removal on top of the 5k Dekus. Now we do see the spirits going here for the effect, which allows him to look at top deck and then gaining double damage, and the Pepper Shot will actually allow him to pick up that card instantly. And of course, that card is actually a really good card given that it's actually the spirits rate the target. We do see the spirits coming here to actually bounce the Ochako before actually going for the special to kill off the Deku, and it still does actually soak up one of the removals thanks to the Ochako. And you're going to see a first damage here, or a double damage thanks to the spirits hitting to the final as well as hitting to the active trigger, which allows him to basically block with the other Deku here. But of course, he does have the 5k Deku, so it doesn't really matter too much here. And this is where actually things get scary for the right player, because he does have to have constant specials to actually remove the 5k Dekus, or not the Dekus actually is going to start becoming a very thick wall for the opponent. And you do see actually going for the Black Whip, as well as playing another Black Whip from hand, and then going for the Ochako once again because it did get bounced and not actually retired. And we do see actually playing the Todo tag inside his deck. Now, it's very interesting because for how he actually plays his deck, he's actually mixing some Class A cards. And if you guys actually read the effect for the Dekus, you actually can't play those Dekus if you do actually have any Class A cards in the front line or in the energy line, very similar to the anime, basically Deku being very selfless, alright, which prevents him from working together with the Class A cards. And of course, the Class A cards does actually add a bit of interesting tech for the deck. However, it does get choky, alright, especially if we go towards the later part of the game itself. We can actually explore why, like, what do I mean by choky. Alright, so we do actually see the Lady Black going for the raid here, pushing him back to the 7 life, keeping him very healthy. And he does actually review the pleats here, which allows him to give impact 1 and 1000 to one of the spirits here, which is basically a 5k impact 1. It's gonna go for that 1 swing. And however, it does actually stop there because the 5k Deku is actually a pretty decent wall given that it's 5k, and the right player deck, given the Lady Black Shy, doesn't really do too well against 5k, aside from the fact that they do run the specials, but that's really about it. Because UG, or rather the Spirits clone, can't really actually deal with 5k unfortunately, and we do see the further beyond once again, and we actually see the other class A card in the form of Bakugo, and the Bakugo will actually be popping off one of the pleats in the front line here, removing the idea of a charm blocker for the right player here, which is pretty, insane in a sense, because this game is all about value from now on, given that the left player is actually playing with just 1 to 2 cards in hand. But he's actually having a very decent board against the opponent, even though the opponent does have 7 life here, and life is a very good indicator of resources. However, I'll be very confident here to say that actually the left player here does have all the advantage. We do hit into a Red Spirits here, but it doesn't have enough energy and actually can't be bounced thanks to that. And 1 for all user pushing onto the Deku here, even though he can actually bounce the Shoto and deal 1 less damage. But it isn't really going to do too much because of what I mentioned just now. The 4Ks, man. Ooh, I mean the 5Ks from the Deku is actually pretty insane. And let's not forget the Ochaku still exists in the front line, really protecting those Dekus, which is pretty precious. Alright, so we do see him actually going for the next Pepesha here, just generating energy in the front, the energy line, and I suppose he will be going for the, spirits and of course the special play, killing off both that Ochaku as well as the 5k Deku, which actually does allow him to swing for damage here. And we do actually hit into an active trigger immediately, giving the left body power enough to actually guard over the Lady Black attack and then just passing the turn. So very fortunate for the left player here. He does go for the AP draw 1, and he does actually push out the Bakugo here. And this is where the choke starts to begin, because he actually does have the class A cards or a Deku to actually play down, but he's not able to thanks to that class A teammates or rather classmates not just disabling those effects. And we do see the Bakugo going for the impact 1 here, and of course he's not feeling the choke here yet because he does have the major board advantage with 3-4k swing at the opponent, and he's gonna actually start taking life here and pushing almost to 2 already, but does use the charm blocker in the front line to actually block it off. Unfortunate because he does actually have to respect that potential impact 1 for the opponent. So he just go for the Pepesha once again, but I don't think he actually hit into any draws here, which is pretty unfortunate for him. But he does actually go for the Spirits, which allows him to on-play draw 1 card. And of course he's gonna go for the Pepesha again once again, but however does not hit into anything once again, which is pretty unfortunate because you really need to see Lady Black, and in his whole game alone I believe we only see him actually healing once, and Lady Black, there's 4 copies in the deck, right? So he's actually expected to heal 4, and we do see here the left player thinking very hard for just 1 swing, because the idea is that he's thinking whether to let go of the classic cards. He does decide to let go of the Ochako first, and does instead choose to eat the second one. A very interesting idea, because he just want to remove the class A cards as soon as possible because he's starting to feel the choke, right? He does actually draw into a special here, the Fox 100% Manchester Smash. Let's not forget that it can actually be a 1-cost special, a pretty insane card. But the idea is that he wants to remove those class A cards as soon as possible, because he's starting to feel the unable to play the game anymore, because all the cards in his hand are going to be stuck. We do see the Dekus in the front line, or rather in his hand, are not able to be caught down. And the right player has to understand that, actually sometimes if you are able to remove the Deku in the front line, which is basically the major threat here, right? Given that it does have impact 1, the left player won't be actually able to do anything else except having their 2-4k bodies. And in this game, if you have more bodies than your opponent, you can actually poke some damage out, and the left player is actually at 2 life, so very nicely he's at just need to have 4 bodies against the 2 bodies in the front line, and he will be game here. But we shall see what he can do here. He does go for the cheers and then as well as pleats, and we actually do see the special, the fluffy cannon, removing the Deku here. And the idea is that you don't swing it here, and you basically force the choke on your opponent by essentially deciding to go for the swing here. Alright, and the left player just recognizes that opportunity and then going for the block immediately, because in his hand he does actually have the 1 impact 1 Deku, which basically will end the game right here, because the last life is actually a revealed top card, even though the glare is not showing it. So there's no guaranteed final, no potential final, sorry. So it's a guaranteed win if he does go for the impact 1. He does actually able to active the Deku, and the Deku of course go for the impact 1 just by paying 1 AP, and this is game. So the class A was good, but towards the late game it actually got a bit choky. Now this is the deck list of the champion guy who actually won the whole Agora Battle Cup, and this is the second place deck list as well. Thank you for watching till the end, and do consider subscribing, dropping a like and a comment if you guys do enjoy the content.